One of the most arresting guitar riffs of the rock era was not inspired by Hendrix or Page or Blackmore. Instead, it was inspired by an innocuous bubblegum pop song that obsessed a modern-day virtuoso. I mean, the lyrics and the vocals over that definitive riff were delivered by a painfully shy frontman who spoke for a generation of outsiders. The story of this epic track by one of the most influential bands of all time is next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you love classic rock, pop, and soul, you're going to love this channel. Just subscribe below right now to go behind the creation of the greats. And also just a heads up, we do have new merch at professorofrock.com. Actually, if you click right up here where I'm pointing, that'll take you there. Also, for even more content, check us out on Patreon. The link is above too. That helps us curate more videos and more interviews. So let's start this episode with a little mental exercise. Try to answer these mind-blowing questions. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? Can you smell like a sound? When did time begin? Why are you here at this very moment? How soon is now? Now, to answer that last brain teaser, we'd need to go back in time and get into the mind of Marjorie Rosen, who actually first posed the question in her 1974 feminist film study titled Popcorn Venus. Rosen's question was more about proving a point about gender inequality as opposed to effectively reaching an answer that would be accepted with logic. In 1984, the mind-boggling question became a song title for an epic track that has been referred to as the Stairway to Heaven of the 80s. How Soon Is Now by the Smiths. Now, to get to the bottom of How Soon Is Now, the song, we need to explore the innovative artistry of one Johnny Marr and the tortured artistry of Stephen Patrick Morrissey, the brilliant Fire and Gasoline duo that created one of the most compelling collaborations of the rock era as co-founders of the indie rock supergroup The Smiths, my personal favorite band of all time. Now, the duo pushed each other to extraordinary heights to create a true classic. I'm the sun and the air. That really transcends new wave, post-punk, or alternative rock classification. How Soon Is Now began with symbiotic experimentation of various guitar riffs that earned his obsession since his adolescence. Johnny Marr wrote the music for How Soon Is Now during a 4-day period at Earl's Court in London in 1984. As Johnny Marr tells it, over a few days he was writing new material. He was writing along the lines of trying to fit 3 songs on a 12-incher. The first song that he wrote was fast and short, one of the shortest songs that the Smiths would ever record. The second song that he approached was more of a B-side. You know, it was more melancholy. Guess he'd been missing his family, and so he tapped into that feeling through his instrument, and it ended up being kind of short and waltzy, he says. He felt that next that he should write something longer, some kind of a groove. So he rolled a joint, he plugged in his Epiphone Casino, and he started playing a rhythm. Now, Marr had been a longtime fan of a band called the Gun Club. He liked the style of the swampy blues. He also said that he was trying to play something in the vein of Creedence Clearwater Revival. Have you ever seen the rain? Whom the Gun Club covered in 1982, Run Through the Jungle. I will run through the jungle. I will run through the jungle. Marr said, and I quote, exactly, I kicked around a transy kind of riff that after a while morphed into a slow-down Bohannon. As it went around and around, the tune started to get psychedelic in my headphones, and I knew I was onto something. End of quote. Now, the first phase of How Soon Is Now was an exploration of building a song around a single chord. Johnny Marr chose F sharp as the dominant chord. What he'd done was nothing like the first two songs that he'd written for that 12-incher. Put the 3 tracks on a cassette, and he took it over to lead singer Morrissey's. Now, he wrote the words Fast, Irish Waltz, and Swampy on that cassette. Mazur worked on the lyrics for the songs, and they turned into William It Was Really Nothing, Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want,
so please, please, please let me.
and How Soon Is Now. Now let's stop right there and just think about this for a second. In less than a week, Morrissey and Marr wrote 3 of the most breathtaking compositions ever. I mean, I don't know many duo writing teams that could come close to that, even the legends. Now, he was joined by Smith's bandmates, bassist Andy Rourke and drummer Mike Joyce, I guess on a jam session that triggered some of the ideas for the definitive arrangement of How Soon Is Now. So How Soon Is Now, the demo, was called Swamp because he was searching for a guitar sound that was simultaneously intense and swampy. Johnny Marr called himself an eclectic kid who was attracted to quirky melodies, and he didn't follow his peers who were into heavy guitar acts like Hendrix, Zeppelin, and Deep Purple. Another song that influenced How Soon Is Now is one that stuck with Johnny Marr since he was a 12-year-old, I guess. Johnny Marr called it a dumb little pop song. It was called The Disco Stomp by Hamilton Bohannon, known professionally as simply Bohannon. Johnny recalled listening by the radio for hours, anxiously awaiting to hear everybody do the disco stomp with that catchy, jangly guitar riff. Bohannon was at one time employed by Motown Records as the arrangement of Bohannon and the Motown sound provided musical tour support for the top acts on Motown: Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, the Four Tops, the Temps, and Diana Ross and the Supremes. When he got older and became a more learned student of the instrument, Johnny Marr discovered that the riff he loved in Disco Stomp was actually a hybrid of Bo Diddley's legendary self-invented guitar lick, the Diddley Beat. There's no question that Johnny Marr's riff on How Soon Is Now was influenced by the great Bo Diddley. Beyond Bohannon's derivative melody on Disco Stomp, you can hear the similarities on Diddley's song Mona. So let's add it up. Bo Diddley plus Bohannon plus the Gun Club by way of CCR. Now, there's also a sample from another song in How Soon Is Now. The high-pitched harmonic riff Marr drops in sometimes, heard at around 3 minutes and 11 seconds. That's taken from the keyboard hook of You've Gotta Believe. (1982) single by rap pioneer Lovebug Starski, one of a few people who claim to have coined the term hip-hop. Marr had met Starski, I guess, after a New York show, and the two of them hit it off. Now, everyone in the studio liked the music of the Swamp demo, including producer John Porter. Morrissey put some rough vocals on top of the demo, and it seemed ready to move to the next phase of recording. Listening to the demo late one night, Johnny Marr felt the track was missing something. Johnny had always wanted to put a tremolo effect into a guitar line to create a distinctive ambiance that would stand out. An introduction to a song that was instantly gripping, such as the opening riff on Eric Clapton's Layla. This was Johnny's chance to create an arrangement with a tremolo effect that he had imagined would be very exciting. So I guess the next day, He worked with John Porter on the painstaking but fulfilling process of creating that hypnotic soundtrack for How Soon Is Now. The swirling tremolo sensation that introduces How Soon Is Now, that was produced by 4 Fender twin reverbs. Johnny Marr put down a simple rhythm with a capo on the 2nd fret on a Les Paul, and then he bounced the sound to a live room to the 4 Fender twins. Johnny Marr controlling the pacing of 2 of them. John Porter was manning the other 2. Couple things about this. As they started to record, the band took out the light bulbs and they replaced them with red ones, to mellow the mood. They also smoked some reefer. So 2 amps were recorded on one side of the stereo and the other 2 on the other side. The section of the song with no tremolo was recorded on tape separately, and Johnny Marr sent that part out to the 4 amps that Porter managed. The process to get all of the tracks in sync with the tremolo was challenging, for sure. That took a lot of time and patience. Layering the slide part of the guitar structure was what gave the prominent riff that compelling tension that Johnny Marr eagerly strove for. The tremolo doesn't follow a regular time programming sequence and has to be manipulated by human hands, so it was essential for Johnny Marr and John Porter to have eye contact and to work in harmony to keep all the parts in sync. If the timing fell off, they had to stop what they were doing and start the process all over again, which they had to do multiple times until they hit that perfect moment. They could have resulted to the old cut and paste routine, but the track would have lost its spellbinding dynamic luster over the 6-minute and 30-second length of the song. One of the early versions of a harmonizer was utilized with a 1.2-second delay. Harmonizers were typically used for sampling, but for the recording of How Soon Is Now, Porter recorded the guitar parts with the delay instead of the original to give what John Porter called weirdness. Speaking of weirdness, to my knowledge, this hasn't been substantiated, but there was a rumor going around that I heard even in my teen years, that during his experimentation of sounds for the guitar parts of How Soon Is Now, Johnny Marr placed a guitar on the floor of the studio and he dropped a butter knife on the open strings. He then captured that sound and looped it with a heavy dose of reverb. I don't know if that's true. I've looked it up. I've read it a few places, but I haven't heard it directly from Johnny Marr. Now, whether that's true or false, it's a fun image to put in your head when you listen to the song anyway. Now, during the live Smiths concerts from 85 through their breakup in 88, the band struggled to recreate the stirring sound of How Soon Is Now. Marr himself could not replicate the guitar effect on stage, and it really frustrated the band. Andy Rourke called How Soon Is Now the bane of our live concerts. Now, during his solo concerts, Johnny Marr has been able to work it out with his second guitarist to get a live version of How Soon Is Now to sound pretty close to the studio recording. He even had the Rolling Stones' Ronnie Wood appear as a guest on one of their shows to perform How Soon Is Now with him on stage. Johnny's attitude is, if you can hear the sound in your head, then it can be played. Lyrically, How Soon Is Now is around Morrissey's crippling shyness that leads to emotional and physical anguish.
The sun and the air.
Morrissey developed a moving narrative addressing the frustration of his shyness in the opening line. I am the sun and the air of a shyness that is criminally vulgar.
Of a shyness that is criminally vulgar.
In fact, producer John Porter misunderstood Mazur's lyrics at first. He was thinking that he was talking about the elements. I am the sun, I am the air. Now, to complete the first verse, Morrissey, who is a voracious reader, he put a spin on a passage from one of his favorite novels, George Eliot's Middlemarch. Eliot wrote in chapter 12 of his novel, to be born the son of a Middlemarch manufacturer, an inevitable heir to nothing in particular. Morrissey latched onto that line and paraphrased it.
The sun and the air.
It is a powerful, self-reflective prose that deeply resonated with Morrissey in his bouts with loneliness and alienation, and so many others. Morrissey's lyrics evolve to true life, and the words become more tragic as the song plays on.
You could meet somebody who really loves you.
You could meet someone who really loves you. So you go and you stand on your own, and you leave on your own, and you go home and you cry and you want to die.
And you go home and you cry and you want to die.
The emotions expressed in How Soon Is Now are universally relevant. I mean, that's why How Soon Is Now turned into an anthem for the shunned, the alienated, and the socially awkward. Long before cyberbullying and shaming on social media, Stephen Patrick Morrissey spoke for all generations with a plea for compassion and acceptance in his chorus. I am human and I need to be loved just like everybody else does.
Just like everybody else does.
Not only is How Soon Is Now arguably the Smiths' most famous song, because of its universal plea and its magical sonic elements, it's become that one track that is embraced by everyone, even those who don't care for the band. How Soon Is Now is the one song that truly encapsulates Morrissey's entire poetic mantra and lyrical docket, as well as his inspired vocal.
Human and I need to be loved.
Mazur has a vastly unique, tortured crooning style, as we all know. John Porter recounted that Morrissey finished his painfully authentic vocal for How Soon Is Now in just 2 takes. How Soon Is Now is where we witness Morrissey's greatest performance, in my opinion.
Just like everybody else does.
Mazur's hopelessly emotional plea is a glittering tower of magnificence that rips your heart out, while at the same time comforting your soul.
I am human and I need to be loved.
Returning to the lyrics, to the riddle at hand, How Soon Is Now? Morrissey asked for an answer with terse exasperation in the second bridge, when you say it's going to happen now.
When you say it's gonna happen now.
Well, what exactly do you mean? See, I've already waited too long, and all my hope is gone.
And all my hope is gone.
Apparently, the answer to the question, how soon is now, is that there is no answer. Now is a myth, a term that people use to pacify that never comes soon enough for those longing for something to make them happy or give them immediate gratification. Avid viewers in this community, the POR community, are well aware of my respect for Morrissey as a lyricist. I believe he is the greatest lyricist in the history of popular music. In the very last part, it is so apparent when he says, "You shut your mouth. How can you say I go about things the wrong way?"
Can you say I go about things the wrong way?
And then we hear one of the finest moments of his duality of lyric and voice when he emphatically sings for the last time on the song. He flat out sings, "I am human and I need to be loved." And then he ends with a muffle, just like everybody else does.
Just like everybody else does.
In that last lyric, he doesn't just need to be loved. Morrissey demands it. It was so empowering for all of us outcasts to hear that, the way he sings that.
I'm human and I need to be loved.
How Soon Is Now was the very first Smiths song that I ever heard. To say it was a song that saved my life, that would be an understatement. I mean, as a newly anointed teenager, armed with awkwardness, confusion, loneliness, and painful despair, the music on the radio at that time started to make less sense to me. It said nothing to me about my life as the 80s ended and, the 90s began.
I'm too sexy for my shirt.
When I heard this song, as I was truly discovering bands like Depeche Mode,
All ever wanted, all ever needed is here.
New Order,
I used to think that the day would never come. I'd see the
Cure,
dark
And of course, the Smiths. When I heard How Soon Is Now, though, a gigantic light bulb illuminated inside my head. And for the very first time in my young life at that moment, I felt someone truly understood exactly what I was feeling, what I was thinking, what I was experiencing all the way to my core, deep in my heart. The lysergic, psychedelic tremolo pulse of Johnny Marr's haunting ambiance, along with Morrissey's affecting lyrics and the magnetism of his poignant vocals, created a state of rapture that lifted me up off the ground. And it just gave me the strength to ignore, the suicidal thoughts, giving me the antidote to survive through the hellish years of high school and beyond. I know I'm not alone in that feeling.
The sun and the earth.
The Smiths really saved a lot of lives. I really believe that. It's what every teenager needs to get through this thing called life, to be understood. To be understood. It's such a powerful feeling. The Smiths truly understood. How Soon Is Now is the enduring opus of the brief but profoundly impactful 5-year run of the Smiths, which I would put up against any band. Although it is largely considered the band's greatest, the song's peak chart position didn't match its everlasting reverence. One factor is, its epic length. The LP version, 6 minutes, 46 seconds, and the shamelessly neutered edit is over 4 minutes. Another is that the song was placed on many different forms of vinyl before it became a focal disc. Jeff Travis, the owner of the Smiths record label Rough Trade, thought How Soon Is Now was too different from their other material. He vetoed, he called it noise, actually. Noise. And he vetoed those who wanted it to be released as a single. You just haven't earned it yet, baby. Those who know the Smiths will know what I'm talking about there.
Just haven't earned it yet, baby. You must suffer and
Initially, How Soon Is Now was the B-side for William It Was Really Nothing, but it wasn't released as a standalone single until 1985, after the song began to get airplay on British radio stations. How Soon Is Now reached an underwhelming crest at number 24 in the UK, eventually becoming a certified gold single with sales over 400,000. Now, the single did go to number 5 in Ireland. It became an alternative rock staple for the handful of college and commercial alternative music stations in the US during the mid to late 80s. For example, at WFNX, an alt-rock station in Boston, the song was ranked the number 1 song of the decade in the 80s. How Soon Is Now? Been a lot of covers. Several bands, including the Psychedelic Furs, their spin-off, Love Spit Love.
you shut your mouth. How can you say?
And there was also Snake River Conspiracy,
I go about things the wrong way.
as well as the Russian duo Tattoo. The Where Are They Now group Soho heavily sampled Johnny Marr's guitar riff from How Soon Is Now on their one and only hit called Hippie Chick that was in 1990. With Marr and Morrissey receiving 25% of the song's royalties. In movies, the song was used in the 1996 film The Craft.
The Craft.
Closer in 2004, and it was also in Adam Sandler's Wedding Singer in 98.
I don't want to be alone anymore.
Also the TV show Charmed, it was the theme song. How Soon Is Now deserved to be number 1 everywhere. That's my take. I mean, if there was any justice in the world, which as we know there isn't. Like I said, it's been called the Stairway to Heaven of the 80s, but really it has its own personality. It has its own greatness that has never been equaled. It was inspired for sure, but it was also because of the band's focus and their determination and their work ethic to write and record it succinctly. It's like Johnny Marr said, and I quote, "Occasionally, If you're lucky, your work takes on a life of its own and pulls you along with it. You follow the momentum and forget about time, food, and sleep. You're in the flow. It's inspiration. And as Picasso once said, inspiration does exist, but it has to find you working. Leave us a comment about this beautiful, moving epic of the 1980s. What are your thoughts, your memories, and your experiences with this song and this life-changing band? If you don't know the band, go check it out. Tell us all in the comments below. If you like our content, we do invite you to become a subscriber, a full-time subscriber below. Make sure to check out our merch and our Patreon. That helps us keep the music alive. Until next time, truly, 3 chords and the truth.